What is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Saber review. This time, of course, talking about episode number 41. Master Logos has been defeated, but there, of course, is still another threat out there, and the riders must prepare, but of course, not before a little bit of R&R. So let's break this episode down and talk about it because, you know, one thing that's really funny is that a lot of times I tend to skip kind of the openings for a lot of episodes just because they usually aren't very relevant to what plays out later, but I had to talk about this scene here because man does this game look like a lot of fun. I've actually never seen this before. I'm sure it's like very much a Japanese culture type of a game where essentially they slide down noodles on this little tiny slide and you're supposed to pick them up with chopsticks. Never seen this before, but oh my gosh, does that look like a lot of fun. And yeah, it definitely made me hungry, let's put it that way, for some noodles after watching this particular scene in general. So you know what, I think after I'm done doing this review, I might actually go out for some ramen, I'm not sure. But regardless, this looked like a lot of fun, and that's why I wanted to talk about it with you guys. Even though it's not really relevant for the rest of the episode, I just needed to point out how much fun this absolutely looked. But we do get to the next scene, which is very plot relevant, which is Ren kind of just being left on his own because Desast basically ditches him for a reason that I'll get to in a minute. But Ren is just kind of there by himself, still contemplating. Again, when it came to the Ren and Desast storyline, I didn't really see where they were going with it. In this particular episode, it looks like we finally know what it is that the writers are doing with this storyline, but it's really hard to say for sure, and it's like I'm kind of mixed on it because on the one hand, I've made this mistake before when reviewing Kamen Rider Saber of jumping to conclusions on where I think the story is going and therefore being kind of annoyed by something really easily without actually giving it the chance it deserves. And I'm trying not to do that with the Ren slash Desast storyline. I'm trying to let this play out to really see what it is that they're building up to with this, and I think in this episode we finally got like the first big reveal of what it is that this might lead to, and if it goes into the direction I'm hoping, then I will say that yes, the Ren and Desast stuff, it works a lot better now when you know what the payoff is going to be. But until then, I'm still not really the biggest fan of it, just because as of now it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere until of course the end of the episode, but I'll get to that in just a moment. But yes, we then got to talk about Desast in this episode because he confronts Storious, basically saying that his time in this world, he hasn't felt very satisfied yet. He wants more time. He doesn't want Storious to just, you know, wipe out the world once he gets like the you know, big power that all the villains have been looking for this season. So we end up getting a fight between the two of them, but of course Storious doesn't exactly play fair. He brings in one of the previous monsters, specifically the one that can like swallow like a lot and absorb its power. I forgot the name of it, I do apologize, but we then get a big reveal in that scene that Desast was the one who picked up the sword after the really big fight with Master Logos a few episodes ago, which we kind of figured it might have been him. It was either him or Storious, but since Storious spends most of his time in like a human form, it kind of led to the assumption that it was more than likely Desast, and here it gets confirmed as Desast henshins into the Kamen Rider and tries to take down Storious, but with Storious and his other monster eventually becomes too overwhelming for Desast. Meanwhile though, Tassel finally gets to interact with not just Touma, but the entire group altogether, and here we kind of get the backstory that we've been getting throughout the entire season, but here we got like a much more clear timeline on everything. And also, as before, when the backstory was being given on the series, it was always done through illustrations and never really through live action, with maybe the exception of a couple of shots here and there. But here we get like a full-on you know, visual aspect as to the whole backstory of the Wonder World, how it was discovered, how it is that the main villains kind of got their power slash curse, whatever it is that you want to call it, how they became evil, all that kind of stuff. So any like little bits of questions that you may have had on how this all fits in together basically gets answered by Tassel in this episode. We then get, of course, the reveal that we found out a few episodes, or no, I believe it was the previous episode, if I'm not mistaken. It was kind of down to the choice that Luna and Touma have to make, which is if they want to see each other again, it unfortunately means Touma has to leave all of his friends behind. Now, that said, Touma does, like, contemplate this for a minute before just kind of going F Destiny, whether or not Destiny says I have to choose one or the other, it's my choice and I choose both. And he seems extremely confident that he can be with Luna, but he won't have to leave any of his friends in doing so. And I'm really curious to see how that plays out later on, because, you rarely see these Kamen Riders here, having all this hope that they build up, and you rarely see it like not going through. Now you do have those moments where they give up on themselves, or they give up thinking that there's no other way, but usually in the end they do find it. Or what I think will probably happen is that he'll end up choosing one and basically learning to accept the fact that he can't have both. So we'll have to see how that plays out later on, but it is going to be an interesting decision come like probably the series finale. I would assume it's not going to be, this decision isn't going to be made within the next couple of episodes. I would assume it's going to be a decision he's going to be making in the last episode, but again, we'll have to wait and see for that one. But then we get Touma, of course, really wanting to reunite everyone. He goes and tries to confront Ren himself. Now, this is funny because I feel like every single one of the Kamen Riders have now tried to have a one-on-one with Ren, and he's just been giving all of them the cold shoulder in one way or another. And with Touma, it's kind of the same thing. He's given the cold shoulder while also trying to figure out why it is that Touma is so powerful. Which I feel like we've had this conversation before. There was a whole episode where Ren and Touma had a duel together, and this exact kind of conversation played out. So it really feels like they're kind of just repeating themselves, and they're just trying to pad some time for the episode, or maybe just pad some time for the arc for Ren's character. I'm not sure, but it just feels like this has been kind of repeating itself maybe one too many times, to my opinion, in particular. But meanwhile, we do see that Storious is, even though he just defeated Desast, he's still, continuing with his plan. So he basically causes an entire mountain to disappear while leaving his monster that had defeated Desast to kind of, just go wild. And so leaving that monster in particular for the other riders to take care of. Now, for some reason, even though we didn't really see it in this episode, I guess Rintaro and Kento are still completely hurt from the previous battle with Master Logos, even though they looked totally fine in the beginning. So because of this, it ends up being that Tetsudo and Ogami, I'm sorry, I blanked on Tetsudo's names for a brief moment, so that's why I had that brief moment of silence. But the two of them are the ones who end up going after the monster of the week, and they unfortunately aren't powerful enough to defeat it, especially because this monster has actually absorbed some of Desast's powers, which something I didn't go over in the fight with Desast and Storious is that the monster did kind of eat part of Desast and possibly destroyed the actual book that transforms him into the Kamen Rider. So what ends up happening is the monster ends up absorbing its power and then overpowering the two of them. But of course that doesn't last long, as Touma shows up, and not only is Touma in his new form, which is super powerful, but he also has the ability to give other riders even more power, as we saw in the previous episode. So together they dispose of the monster of the week like it's nothing. They rip him apart as if he's wet tissue or something. So it ends up not being an issue, but then we discover that wasn't exactly Storios's plan to begin with. Really, what he was doing was he was trying to make a distraction. Now, I don't know why I put this scene here where I did, but essentially this was during the fight with Desast. What ends up happening is the fight with Storious and Desast is what ends up happening is that Desast ends up retreating from the fight after he knows he's lost, and he then goes to confront Ren, basically asking Ren to fight like his life depends on it, because it does. And I think what's going on here is I feel like they're really building up for Desast to have kind of a little bit of a redemption arc kind of thing going on. I feel like once he fights Ren, he might beat him in the next episode, but he won't be able to go through with actually finishing him off because maybe he's built a bond, and then maybe Desast becomes the next rider to join the crew. I mean, after all, they do have they do have and I'm blanking on his name again, even though I did say it like earlier, but you know, they got an actual you know, weaponsmith on their team, so I do feel like if anyone can repair his sword, it's definitely him. So I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen, is Desast, the whole thing that they were building up to with Ren and Desast is the two of them making each other better, and then the two of them becoming better people, like in the end, from working together or something like that. That'd be my theory. And if that's what they're building up to, then I will say that it will make a lot more sense for all the previous episodes where it's just been the two of them doing absolutely nothing, I guess. You know, not the best payoff, but at least it's something, you know, something out of what for the last like 10 episodes has felt like nothing, if that makes sense. But very last scene we get, I gotta give some compliments on the production side of this, because this is a very well shot scene. You know, and I'm aware it's probably because maybe it's a green screen background, so therefore they have the VFX artists have a lot more creativity to do all sorts of fun things with the angle that they got. But I have to say, I really do love this shot here where the room turns completely dark after Luna has disappeared and Tassel is looking for her, but then he turns around to see that Storious is in the room waiting for him, and that is how our episode ends, unfortunately. So we got some cool things going on, some possible potential, I guess we should say, with some good character arcs. But again, it's all really, my opinion of it is really all going to change based on the actual payoff. And again, I'm trying not to jump to conclusions, because the last time I did it when reviewing the show, I ended up, you know, saying, you know, giving the show some unfair negative critiques that I wish I could take back, you know, when you look at some of my earlier reviews, just because to me at the time it felt like the story was going absolutely nowhere. And then kind of seeing where it's all been building up to, I realized in retrospect that I really should have given it more time to play out. But guys, overall, I thought this was another really good episode. Absolutely loved the choreography for the fight between Desast and Storious. I think especially because, not that I have anything against this, but most of the fights we've been getting the last few episodes have all been like group fights. And while group fights can be fun, one-on-one I feel like is the easiest to come up with creative choreography for, because realistically, it's very rare that you're going to be able to see one person take down three people at once, and therefore you'll notice that the three people that are taking down the one person have to really dumb down their choreography in order for it to like work. So when it's one-on-one though, I feel like that's not an issue that they have to worry about. They can have two you know, really good stunt choreographies going on at the same time, and it makes such an amazing fight scene. But you know, overall, I did think it was quite an awesome fight between the two of them, and I thought this was overall such a really good episode. I absolutely loved getting kind of a very clear visual now of the timeline of the backstory, you know, something that we've gotten bits and pieces of episode by episode, but now we have it all just laid out there for us, which I thought was really unique for this episode. And yeah, I am very excited to see how the rest of the series plays out. But overall, really good episode, guys. But of course, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Definitely hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+. I'll catch you guys later.
Our content and want to be a part of helping our channel grow, become a patron supporter. We have affordable tiers to choose from that offer a variety of exclusive and early access content, from audio files for all of our shows for you to enjoy on the road, access to our Discord community, and plenty of reactions, reviews, character breakdowns, and more. Check us out at patreon.com/A+opinions. And as always, remember, like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so anytime we drop a brand new video, you will be notified.